Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kim Barrett Show. I am your host, Kim Barrett. And on today's episode, we are joined by Mr. John Mitchell. Now, John is a serial entrepreneur, has created the top application in the world of the top book in the world on success, which is Think and Grow Rich. So if you haven't read or listened to Think and Grow Rich, what are you doing with yourself? I highly recommend you go and check it out. And it's been read by over 100 million people worldwide. It's one of the keys to the success of many great people. If you ask them, they'll say that they went through this. And now he really uncovered there's only about half the secret you get in the book. The rest is what he figured out. And he's built his own 12-minute-a-day technique. And really, it's the $5 million secret, $5 million a year secret that he narrowed down to 12 minutes a day. Now, if you want to check that out, I highly recommend you listen to this episode. Who wouldn't? And of course, we can never help you in probably about 12 minutes a day as well. Grow your marketing, grow your leads. Head over to www.joinmygroup.com.au, where we have all our free trainings, everything that you need to be successful from a marketing standpoint. And then John will help you with everything else. But until then, let's jump into the show. John, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Hey, glad to be here.
Great to have you. Now, I always like to start off the podcast the same way every time, which is if I met you at a party and you and I were chatting and I said, John, what is it that you actually do? What's your go-to answer?
I leverage people through science by applying the science of the human mind.
I love that. And dive deeper into that for us, because that's a big topic in a big field. So break that down a little bit. Like how do you use that to help people?
Well, I think it's easiest maybe to tell you my story, and then you'll see it from there. So I started out as a CPA, became an entrepreneur when I was 30, but Kim, when I turned 50, I just wasn't as successful as I thought I should be. And I'd been in like 7 different businesses and always made a couple of $100,000 net, but never, 7 figures. And I know this sounds materialistic, but when I turned 50, I saw that unless I started netting 7 figures a year, I never had the exceptional life that I dreamed of. I never really had the freedom I dreamed of. And the other thing that was sort of going on in my life at 50 was, at 50, I'd never been married. And so one of my goals was also to find the woman of my dreams. And so I was falling short on both my priorities. And so, I'm puzzled how to change this 20-year history. And I don't know, it's probably 3 months after I turned 50, it comes to me, find the top book in the world on success and apply that book literally word for word to my life. Well, pretty good idea, but I wasn't sure there was one book above all others. And so I did the research and I discover, surprisingly, that there's one book that's been read by 100 million people. And the next best-selling book on success has been read by less than 10 million people. And that book is Think and Grow Rich. No doubt you know the book, you probably read it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so I'm like, well, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm like a heat-seeking missile. Next day, I go get the book and I start reading it. And then I discover the problem. The book says there's a secret for success, but the author only gives you half of the secret. It's on the reader to figure out the other half. Well, I'm disappointed and I need the full secret, and I mope around for probably 3 weeks. And Kim, just one day I get up and I go, John, just man up and figure out the full secret. And so over the next couple months, I just immerse myself in the book and I figure out the full secret and a 12-minute-a-day technique to apply it. So I started applying this to a new business I was starting in the reverse mortgage business. And quickly my income starts doubling and doubling and doubling to where like 4 years later, I'm netting $5 million a year, which was 25 times what I'd ever made before. And of course, I felt so blessed. But Kim, what was so cool was I could see why it was working. For the first time ever, I was proactively influencing my autopilot. I had really leveraged myself, and I saw that I could just do things I couldn't do before, and they were happening automatically without thinking. And it truly felt like having a superpower, just playing the game of life at a higher level. And the reason it was having such a impact on my income was I was focused only on what moves the needle. I had tripled my discipline, and I had new ideas coming to my head consistently every week. And this methodology gave me control over my life to a level I'd never experienced before. And so to wrap this up, I became fascinated that you could take two key scientific principles and apply them to your life and so materially impact your success that I decided I wanted to share this with the world. And 7 years ago, I sold my company. And probably a month after I sold my company, I met the former chancellor and president at the University of Texas. And he says, "Hey, you got to teach this at Texas, and why don't we teach it together?" So, that's when I started teaching it at the business school, but also teaching it to entrepreneurs.
I love that. And obviously, being that there was so many kind of nuances for you to figure out with that, how well do you find it received? Because I find sometimes when people don't have to necessarily search out an answer as much as obviously like you had, sometimes they maybe don't go and apply it all because it almost seems like too easy. But how have you found the reception of that once you were able to figure that out and then obviously start teaching it to people? What's kind of been like the reception like to that and the application of it?
Well, that's a great question. And I tell you, when I started sharing this with the world, I thought everybody is going to want this. Everybody wants to be more successful, right? And 12 minutes a day doesn't sound like it's too much, right? Well, I was completely wrong because, and this was probably 3 or 4 years ago, I decided, if I'm going to devote my life to it, I want to show it to the top expert in the world on success. And just see what he thinks about it. So, is there a flaw in it? Is there something else similar to it? And in my opinion, Darren Hardy is the top expert in the world on success. And so I spend 3 days with him and I show him my methodology and the template. And he looks at it and goes, "Wow, this is really good." But he says, "John, they're not going to spend 12 minutes a day on this." And I'm like, "Darren, how the heck can that be? This 25x my income." Time Magazine did a cover story on the science behind it, and we're applying the central concept of the top book in the world on success. I'm like, "What do you mean they're not going to spend 12 friggin' minutes a day on this?" And he sort of laughs. He goes, "Well, John, the dirty little secret of the success and human achievement field is that most people won't do anything to impact their success and achievement." He says, more success for most people is merely a preference. He says, you got to show this to people that are really driven. Only show it to driven people where that higher level of success is a necessity rather than merely a preference. And Kim, that was so insightful. Even though I heard what he said, and then over the next few years, I saw it play out exactly as he said. So this is only for driven people. And if a person wonders if they're driven, they are not driven. People that are driven know it, don't you think?
100%. And I mean, it's probably the curse. Like, we work with a lot of people that are course creators that go and create info products and things like that. And they get upset when only like 20% of people complete their courses.
Yeah.
And I say to them, I'm like, but that's pretty much like, that's the industry average. The industry average is somewhere between 15 and 20% of people. Unfortunately, if you go, like, we teach advertising and marketing, and people can, grow their business, get as many leads generated in sales as they want. But most people don't make it past the second module because, as you say, it's a preference. It's not like they don't have the burning desire to go and make it happen. Whereas I know for myself, when I learn something new, I want to apply it and get it implemented straight away. Like, if someone, like the other day, they were like, "Oh, you should try this on TikTok ads," and I was like, "Okay, great. Give me the instruction. I'll go and do it right now because I want to see what will come from it. I want to test it out." But it's unfortunate, I suppose, that not many people really actually have a preference for success. It's just a choice. If it works or not, yeah, maybe. Otherwise, I suppose everyone would be, would be ridiculously successful if they were super driven by it.
Right. Well, here's something you'll find interesting. The book Think and Grow Rich, the idea is applying science to up your success. More specifically, taking the science of the human mind to leverage yourself. And it's based on one central concept that 95% of your daily actions are unconscious. So think about that. If 95% of your daily actions are unconscious, your success is determined by the cumulative effect of your daily actions, right? Whether we're talking about your career, your marriage, your health, it's that cumulative effect of your daily actions. Well, if 95% of them are unconscious, the only way that you can have a higher level of success is to influence those unconscious daily actions. I mean, it's pure math. And I see in teaching what I teach, when somebody really gets that, it's like the domino falls. They're like, oh, I'm all in. And let me ask you a question. So how would that affect you if 95% of your daily actions are unconscious? How does that affect you? Are you doing anything to impact those unconscious daily actions?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's hugely impactful. And I know for myself, every day I try and bring myself into alignment with revenue generating activities for my business, for health improvement activities. Obviously, at the moment, as people can probably hear, I got a bit of a flu, so unfortunately caught COVID. But I think I definitely do better than most by bringing awareness every day of things that I should take. Like just before this call, I always take lion's mane, like a mushroom extract, to make sure that I can focus and things like that. So I try and bring more conscious awareness, I think, to the actions that I take every day. And you do see the effect compounding over time, for sure.
Right. Well, I'm gonna show you how to be a little more proactive about it and intentional. As you learn the science, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's surprisingly easy. And in telling you the story, I told you it's like having a superpower, and I'll explain why I feel that way. And here's an example. And this happened not too long ago. It was back around Christmas, and I decided to go see a client of mine in San Antonio, which is about an hour's drive from Austin. And so it's like, I told my wife, meet me at Starbucks at 2:00. She was out and about, I was out and about. So we'll just meet at Starbucks and go in one car. And so I get there a little early, and I'm thinking, it's Christmas. I think I'll have a brownie. So I order a brownie, and I start eating that brownie. And Kim, one of the things in the 12-minute a day technique that I'm going to explain, one of the things I feed to myself is I'm aware of everything I put in my mouth. So I'm eating that brownie, and I'm aware of it. I'm also aware that it's not very good, but I keep on eating it. And so I finish it. Ginger shows up. We jump in the car. We drive to San Antonio, and I notice that I've lost my appetite and I don't feel very good. And so when I get home that night, I go and change the template in my 12-minute a day technique. I change one word. I change it from aware of everything I put in my mouth to I evaluate everything I put in my mouth. Well, the next night, we go out to dinner with her son and go have Mexican food. And I order tacos. The tacos come, and they're not very good. But this time, I'm evaluating what I'm putting in my mouth, and I just slide those tacos away, and I don't have another bite. All that happened automatically without thinking. And then that night, when I was laying in bed, I'm like, boy, if that's not a superpower, I don't know what is. When you can get your autopilot to take the right actions and you're not even thinking about it. And that's sort of the power of rewiring your autopilot so it takes the right actions. Does that make sense?
100%. And because I think that sounds super powerful, because I know for a lot of people, when they talk to me about whether they're making better decisions in their business or their health or whatever, it comes with the cognitive load, right? Because they're like, I have decision-making fatigue because I have to make all these choices like cognitively, rather than having that on autopilot. So that sounds like it's super powerful. Yeah. So what's like, can you obviously without giving away everything, like, can you give us a little bit of a sprinkling of like what's involved in this 12-minute a day technique? Because it does sound like it's, I'm sure everyone listening is like, Kim, you better ask him what the technique's actually kind of like. Hopefully he can tell us a little bit, you know?
Kim, I'm giving you everything. So let me teach you the science now. And it's surprisingly simple. So we all have two fundamental problems we have to overcome. The first one is we're innately wired for survival. And what that means is we're innately wired to be fear-based, reactive, and negative. Now, that was a good thing 5,000 years ago when there was danger around every corner. But it's exactly the opposite of the way that we need to be if we want to be productive, creative, and happy in the modern world. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is what I had just said, that 95% of your daily actions are unconscious. And some people would think, well, how do I control that? But you can. But what the combination of those two things, what it really means is that when you open your eyes each morning, you're on autopilot most of the day, innately wired to be fear-based, reactive, and negative. And that's why people oftentimes feel like they're playing the game of life at 20% of their potential. I mean, so many of my clients say to me, I'm hardworking, but there's a disconnect between my efforts and results, and I just feel like I'm playing at 20% of my potential. Well, that's why. And so that's the problem. Now, let me show you how the solution comes in. And this is how the human mind works. The conscious mind sets the intention and is influenced by logic, but your daily actions are controlled by the subconscious mind, and it's only influenced by repetition. And as an example of that, let's say you want to lose weight. Well, the conscious mind sets the intention to lose weight based on the logic of the health benefits. But the actions to lose weight, such as exercising and controlling what you eat, are controlled by the subconscious mind, and it's only influenced with repetition. That's where this 12-minute a day technique comes into play. And so what this really means is that you have got to override your innate programming to be survival oriented and overlay a programming that programs you to be productive, creative, and happy. And that's what we do through this 12-minute a day technique. And in terms of sort of how it works exactly, so the book Think and Grow Rich, as I mentioned, it says there's a secret for success, and he only gives you half of the secret. And the half that he gives you is that everything starts with a thought. Well, when I read that, I'm like, yeah, but where the heck do I go with that, right? And once I immersed myself in the book for a couple of months, here's what I found was the full secret. What you envision in detail on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And what that really means is when you step back from your life and you create immense clarity, exactly the person you want to be, exactly what you want to accomplish, and precisely how you're going to achieve your clearly defined goals. When you establish that clarity and then feed that to yourself 12 minutes a day, which is accommodated through the template we create so that it's a succinct articulation of your entire life. After 21 days, the magic happens and the science kicks in. And about that 21-day mark, the subconscious mind starts accepting what you're feeding it, and it upgrades your daily actions and thoughts, and those improved, upgraded daily thoughts and actions create the life that you want. And it's powerfully simple, and it's just amazing process.
I like it. And I suppose
that all makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. And that's probably the hard part. As you said, everyone's probably listening to this and they're like, oh, great. So all I've got to do is to be able to get the clarity, apply this for 12 minutes. But that's the hard part, right? It's like at least 21 days consistently every day. You've got to make time for it to see how important it is for you to actually execute upon it.
Well, and you sort of hit on it right there. Sometimes I have people say, well, this won't work on me. I'm like, this works on everyone. It's pure science. It can't not work, but it doesn't mean it's right for everybody, because the 12 minutes a day is easy. It's creating that clarity that is the hard part. And that's where most people would not, unless success is mandatory. If it's just merely a preference, regular people aren't going to do it. And like I often say, this is for the 2% of people that really are determined to play the game of life at the highest level. And so as I work with people, that's what I'm looking for, that they really are driven, that I'm going to help them get that clarity, but they got to put in the work. And so that's what I look for before I accept someone into my program, is just that they're driven and they're going to put in the work.
Yeah, 100% agree. Because I could see that otherwise it's really just like wishing something and not taking any action is not going to make anything any better. So unless you're going to put the work in, it's going to be pretty superfluous to actually even do something.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And now, John, as we get towards the end of our time here together, I could probably talk to you about this all day, but I want to make sure I stay on point from a time perspective. What's a question that I haven't asked you that I should have?
I'd ask me what's different with what I've got versus everybody else in the success business. And here's what's different. Everybody else in the coaching and human success business, they're teaching you strategies, and oftentimes really good strategies. But Kim, you got great strategies coming out your ears. The magic is getting great strategies to show up in your thoughts and actions automatically. And that is what separates this from everything else. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, definitely.
And one thing we might do, I want to introduce your listeners to how do I maybe take a first step on this. And there's again, this is all about proactively influencing the subconscious mind. And I want to teach your audience a very simple first step for doing that. And it's this idea of setting aside time to just think 2 times a week. Now, I'm talking about deep thinking, not regular thinking. But, this is a habit that the top people in the world have. People like Elon Musk and Bill Gates, they set aside time to deep think twice a week. And here's how it works. So you pick the 2 days you're going to do it. I pick Wednesday mornings and Sunday mornings. Wednesday because I'm halfway through my week. Sunday because I'm a little more reflective about my where I am. And then I pick my favorite place at my house or in nature. Not your regular workstation, because we want to change the state. Then you get your thinking tablet, which is just a leather-bound pad of paper in a nice leather binder, and it's got blank sheets of paper. And then it's a 3-step process. The first step, and the thinking sessions take about 30 minutes. The first step is take 5-10 minutes and just write anything that comes to your head. Let it come in freely. Don't try and steer it. Just whatever's coming in, just jot it down. Then the second step is figure out a question to ask yourself. The human mind responds to a question differently than just random thoughts, and it will go deeper. And so you write down whatever question you come up with, write it down, and then answer that question. And then the third step, after you've spent probably 30 minutes total, and sometimes more, sometimes less, but you draw a line under the last thing you write and note the 2 or 3 takeaways, and then the 2 or 3 action steps, and then take those action steps and put them on next week's to-dos. So you're connecting your thinking to taking action. And Kim, the reason this works is because let's say you get your week going on a Monday. You have a lot of stuff coming at you. You're talking to people, you're hearing things, and in the moment, you don't necessarily understand the relevance of what you might have just heard. But you give your subconscious mind a couple of days to process this, and give it an output venue on, say, Wednesday, what'll happen is you'll be there since Wednesday morning and you go, wow, I remember talking to Bill about such and such on Monday, and he said this. Now I understand the implication in my life, how I can use what he said. But that's just the subconscious mind processing it. And it's such a game changer. I came up with came up with an idea that ended up, netting me $6 million just from one of these thinking sessions. And this is one of the first things I teach my clients is to figure out, like, as an example, what moves the needle in your business. And once you figure that out, you'll probably figure that out from one of these thinking sessions.
I love that.
And so for your audience, if they'll go to thinkitbeit.com/podcast, I have a video that explains in detail how to do it. Also a guide as to what to think about, but it's a powerful technique.
I love that. So guys, we'll have that link if you missed it just then in the show notes above or below. And is that the best place for if people are listening and obviously they want to, test that out to start off with? Do they have is there any other places that people should go to find out more about what you're up to online?
Then just go to John at thinkitbeit.com. I mean, the website is thinkitbeit.com, but if they want to just reach out to me individually, I'd love to talk to them. John at thinkitbeit.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So guys, wherever you're watching or listening to this, check the show notes above or below. We'll have all the links on and how you can connect with John there as well. And if you know someone who is one of those, maybe a 2%, or maybe someone who does, prioritize success and really wants to go out there and push the needle, please make sure you share this episode with them so they can hear a little bit about John's techniques and strategies here for everyone. So I'd love for you guys to share that with more people interested in growing their success. And John, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you making the time.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.